As you mentioned a while ago, part of the genesis of the Darfur crisis was competition over resources. The question of land ownership and the conflict between pastoralists and nomads and so forth, what lessons can Nigeria learn from the unfortunate situation in that area?
Well, the Darfur is still small, 7 million. They are part of Sudan, but we are much bigger. And the issues are a bit more complex to some extent, because, but I believe one lesson that we have is to, dialogue has to be a key part of this problem, because if military solution could have been the only way out, there will be no conflicts in Darfur, and there will be no recurring conflicts between the pastoralists and the nomads in our country. So resources has to be expanded. We have to have a situation whereby we have reserves of water, of grassland, so that the nomads will be able to take their cattle in ways in which it will not impinge on the needs of the farmers in the respective area. But above all, dialogue, which has to be promoted at the district level, at the provincial level, at the state level, and also national level, to address the fundamental issue of resource distribution, resource use, and not to fight over them, but to see how there can be justice and access to resources in a much more equitable manner.
It is believed that the new Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, has made significant progress in reaching some of its aims, particularly in the areas of debt cancellation, African ownership and leadership, and so forth. But the belief in some other quarters is that after 12 years, the impact of NEPAD is yet to be felt in Nigeria. As Under-Secretary and Special Advisor to the Secretary General on Africa, you worked closely with heads of government on the continent to develop NEPAD. What are the challenges, and how can we get the intended benefits of the NEPAD initiative?
This is a very good question. It is for a fact that NEPAD has lost steam, and there are three reasons for this. First is that we tend to concentrate in Africa on individuals rather than building institutions. I argued it's not a choice between strong leaders and strong institutions. You need both. But with NEPAD, you know, the prime movers, Mbeki, Obasanjo, President Obasanjo, Bouteflika, President Wade, and almost all of them are gone from the scene. But we have not managed to have the institutions that will be strong enough that irrespective of the prime movers, the momentum will continue. That's one. Second is that NEPAD has not been domesticated properly in each of the countries of Africa. In other words, you have the headquarters of NEPAD in Johannesburg. You have, there's also a problem relating them to the African Union, but then you have the UN support for NEPAD, but you need to domesticate. What do I mean by that? It's not just a government thing. You have to have civil society, very deeply committed. The business community have to be deeply committed. And then, of course, the government. We have not, again, managed to associate these other stakeholders between, apart from the government, to really continue the momentum. And the third aspect is really the international community, because for me, new ideas, innovations are important, but the international community tends to have a short attention span. And so the kind of support that should be given, for example, for the development of infrastructure, which is one of the key objectives of NEPAD, has not, President Wade of Senegal, former president, was particularly strong on that, but how much commitment did we get? At best, it's only the Chinese that seems to be committed on a bilateral basis for helping the infrastructural development in Africa, which is one of the key objectives of NEPAD. Having said that, there's one aspect of NEPAD we must not forget, which is the African peer review mechanism, which, frankly speaking, could be better, but over 27 African countries have signed up to it for corporate governance, economic governance, and political governance. So for African leaders to come together, to agree to peer review each other, not to punish anybody, but to identify best practices to emulate, and those who are not doing so well, how to encourage them for better good governance, on better governance, I think that is one thing that we should be proud of. And we should try to, if I have my way, that African peer review mechanism will not be voluntary, it should be made compulsory. And that's why I believe NEPAD should also be directly related to the African Union, so that, in my view, will then improve the good governance credentials of NEPAD, which I think is still relevant and is moving in the right direction.
Now, let me ask you a personal question to round this up. From your first degree, you read international relations and remained on that path throughout your career. Even all your academic work was in that field. I know that when people are growing up, when they're young, they're not really sure what they want to do in future. Did you always want to be a diplomat?
No, I never thought I would be. I always describe myself as a teacher by training and a diplomat by accident. Very prolonged accident. But I started with, after my graduate degrees and undergraduate and graduate degrees, as a teacher, senior lecturer at Ahmadu Bello University. And my ambition professionally was what I became by the grace of God and thanks to President Shehu Shagari. He appointed me as the Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. I thought that was the apex, you know, and I would return after that to the university. But you know the rest of the story. After a total of 23 years at the UN, I said, let me come back and give back to my country, and I set up this Savannah Center, and of which you asked me at the beginning of this interview. So it was a diploma by accident, prolonged, but I wanted to be just simply a teacher, a professor of political science, international relations.
Professor Ibrahim Gambari, we thank you for your time.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
And we thank you for watching. Please join us next time when View from the Top returns. But between now and then, let's continue our conversation online at channelstv.com. Do follow me on Twitter at ModeleSY and tweet me your thoughts on my conversation with Professor Ibrahim Gambari. Thank you for watching. See you again soon.